Well, everybody, we have a very special episode. We got Ryan Scroggins here in the house. Ryan is a fascinating individual with so much knowledge. I'm going to let him talk about what organizations he's into really briefly and some of the people he represents, but most importantly, we're just going to be talking about the world. And we're going to be going deep into Ryan's mind because I think on this episode, we're ready to lay it out a little bit. Just a little bit.
And very importantly, how we got here.
Yes.
Which is, I think, super important. But,
yeah.
Ryan, one, thank you for being here.
Thank you guys for having me.
Two, why don't you just tell the people basic background, who you are, what you do in the city?
Okay, so I moved here in the late 90s. Started playing music around town. I've been in several bands. Los Carnales is probably the most mentionable band. After that, I started my own band called Ryan Scroggins and the Trenchtown Texans. I'm also a local tattoo artist of 26 years now. And I'm into all kinds of crazy stuff. Ceremonial magic, aliens, conspiracy theory, you name it. So we can start talking about anything that you guys want to talk about.
Let me first just tell the people how we met. And also, if you want to align your necklace,
I'm going to align it.
It'll align. No, I'm just saying your cross is right up here.
Okay.
Your other one. Just for the absolute alignment. Anyway. So, I found a really wonderful Chinese herbalist doctor when I was taking Taekwondo.
You took Taekwondo?
At Rice. I was just doing Taekwondo for fun. And the guy there was like straight out of Taiwan. Yeah. And I was like, he probably knows somebody who's good in the city. And I would rather get on a little more on the Eastern medicine vibe. And so I was looking for acupuncture. I was looking for some herbs. And he referred me to the Changs. I actually forget the name. Can you say the name of it? International Acupuncture
Center, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And I went there and I just really developed a great relationship with them and have kept my health up, taken some really amazing stuff, namely something called MR10, which is a mushroom herb powder, mainly mushroom though. I think over 10 mushrooms or 10 mushrooms plus some other things in it, and I just always feel good, and I kind of just want to stay on it for a long time.
It is widely known that the tobacco and diet industries lobby governments with scientific propaganda for years until proven guilty in court. The artificial treatment of our water is the next corporate deception.
For example, virtually every nation in Europe has rejected the use of artificial fluoride. International studies since the 40s have repeatedly shown that endocrine and neurological effects increase after repeated consumption, even at the levels accepted by U.S. government.
Epic Water Filters is the most thorough industry-grade filtration system that Houston Ensemble has ever used. They reduce heavy metals upwards of 99.5%, such as lead and mercury, bacteria like E. coli, and poisons like chromium, nitrate, and fluoride.
Join us in our journey to living a toxin-free life and get your Epic Water Filter using discount code Houston Ensemble, lowercase, one word. That's Houston Ensemble, lowercase, one word for 20% off your Epic Water Filter.
And they grow everything themselves and they create everything themselves. Long story short, okay, I have like a tattoo or two on my arm, and Tammy Chang says, oh, one of my other patients is a tattoo artist you'd really like. And she said this like the first time I was there, maybe like 2 years ago. And I was like, cool. And then that was it. And then one day I was walking in to get something and I saw another tattooed person and their partner walking in. I was like, I wonder if they're going there. And I was like, I thought I was supposed to be the only white person coming here. Only tattooed white person coming here. And then we go inside and Ryan's in there with his girlfriend or partner, whoever.
She's my wife.
Wife. And Tammy's like, oh, this is Ryan who I was telling you about. And I was like, whoa, cool. She's like, you guys should exchange information. I like how she kind of is the catalyst for it. We should exchange information. So I get Ryan's card, friend him on Facebook, see that he's into very cool, interesting stuff. Even the card is crazy. I might still be in my wallet. I'll check soon.
Oh, yeah.
And then friends with Ryan on Facebook, see some things, comment on some stuff, and then realize that, oh wow, we've got a lot of similarities. We're into similar stuff, music. I know the folks over at Los Carnales. That's cool. Then, we're into the esoteric orders, the brotherhoods, etc. We've been wanting to talk with somebody who's really in there for a long time. And Ryan mentioned that he's part of some groups, and we said, oh, great. And while I was opening the door to let Ryan into the studio today, I got a notification on my phone. I'm looking at my phone while I'm opening the door, and it's Tammy Chang notifying me that she's liking something that we're doing. And I'm just like, this is wonderfully synchronistic. So, background story. Did I miss anything?
Do you want me to tell my Dr. Chang story?
Please.
Okay, I'll make it as quick as I can. So I recommend this guy to everybody. I found out about him because roughly 10, 11 years ago, I had gotten in an accident. Oh, yeah, I forgot to tell you guys. I was also a reptile keeper at the Houston Zoo for 3 years.
Oh, cool.
And I still keep and breed endangered South American turtles in this huge greenhouse I have in my backyard, but that's a whole nother topic.
Sweet.
So cool.
So anyway, when I was working at the zoo, I got in a car accident. This lady actually hit us while we were driving around one of those little golf carts that you see going through the zoo, but she hit us in a car, and I flew out of the golf cart, and I thought I was fine, and then about 5 days later, I ended up in the emergency room, and I was having my appendix taken out, and we realized that it was because of the impact. So a couple months passed by. I started having complications after surgery, and it was really freaking me out. I thought that I had like something stuck inside of me. I thought they might have like left an instrument in me. Like you could feel something sticking out of my intestines. And so I went back to my regular doctor. I went to my surgeon. I went and had an ultrasound. I went and had another CAT scan. I went and to a urologist. I went all over the place. Gastrointestinal doctor, and all of them were like, "You're fine. You're fine. You're fine. Nothing's wrong with you. You need to have comfort in the fact that our tests are showing that nothing's wrong with you." And I'm like, dude, I'm in pain. Like, I can't take this. This is not okay. Like,
Wow.
I don't have any comfort in your tests saying that there's nothing wrong with me.
Right.
So I went on Facebook and I was like, look, I need someone to recommend me to either an Eastern Chinese doctor or an Ayurvedic doctor. And I got like 4 recommendations to Dr. Chang.
Wow.
And went and met him. Immediately was blown away because I went in and talked to him and his wife Tammy, and they basically sat me in a room for like 45 minutes and just talked to me. And that has never happened to me at any doctor's office. Usually like,
Yeah.
what's wrong with you? This is what's wrong with you. Eat these pills. Goodbye. Pay me. You know.
Yeah.
And they sat me down and they were talking to me about what was wrong with me, and basically it was the way that they treat laparoscopic surgery these days. It's not. So basically, if you go get laparoscopic surgery these days, they're like, okay, 8 hours, 12 hours, you're out of the hospital. The way Dr. Chang explained it to me, he was like, look, when they first invented this and started using it, they would keep you in the hospital for like a solid week because, you know, they're blowing your body up with air. They want to make sure that the air gets out of your body. They want to make sure you're healing up right. They want to make sure you're not exerting yourself. They're not doing any of that anymore. They're just kind of like, you're good, go home. Go back to work, you're fine. So he was like, what happened is you overexerted yourself. You still have air trapped inside of your body. You've kind of like not worn a hole, but worn a weak spot into your intestines from overworking. So he was basically like, look, your appendix is here, your pain is here. This is because this side of your body is overcompensating because this side of your body is weak now. So the way he explained it to me, he was like, it's kind of like if you blow up a balloon and pinch a balloon and then let the air out and then blow it back up, you'll see a little bump
Right,
where you pinched it, right? So he was like, this is what happened to your intestines, but it's not a big deal. Going to give you these herbs so the air leaves your body, and I'm going to treat you to heal your intestine. And within, I don't know, a week, I was already feeling the results, and I was like, okay, this guy is completely awesome. His herbs are awesome. The thing that really sold me on him was about a couple months after I had been going, and you know, he does the type of I'll say for the camera, he does that, you already know, but he does the type of acupuncture to where he puts needles all over you, you know, in your feet, your legs, your stomach, your arms, your hands, sometimes in your head, and he connects the like little electrodes to you and sends electricity through all these parts of your body, turns them on, puts a heat lamp over specific parts of your body, turns the lights off, and leaves you in there for 45 minutes. Yeah. So I had done this, you know, probably 40 times at this point. One time I was feeling sick. I called Tammy and I said, hey, I can't come in today. I have a cold. And, you know, I can come in day after tomorrow. And so I show up, and Dr. Ching was like, you're still sick. And I was like, no, I'm not. I'm over it. And he's like, no, I can hear it. Like, you're nasally. Like, you're still sick. I'm going to treat you for it. And I had no idea what he was talking about. And I was like, does this cost extra? Like, I don't know what's going on. And he's like, no. Just lay down. And I had no idea he even did anything different. He put a couple extra needles in me, I guess. And you know how it is. You're laying there getting acupuncture. You can't move because you got these wires all over you.
Yeah.
About halfway into it, I felt the craziest sensation in my chest. And it honestly scared me. And I was like, whoa, what the hell is going on? And I started to feel this sensation rising up my chest. And it freaked me out to the point to where I was almost about to start hollering for Tammy, like, hey, Tammy, what's going on, you know? And it got to about my throat, and I knew what it was. And I was like, oh my God, this is...
the air, right?
No, this is all of the congestion
Oh, wow.
from my cold coming up. And it hit my nasal cavity and just started pouring out of my nose. And there was snot all over the pillow, and I was like, oh my God, you know, like, I can't move, like, and snot's just coming out of me, and I was like, this is insane. And so Dr. Ching comes in to, like, unhook me, and he's, like, laughing, you know, and I'm like, can I please go blow my nose? And he's like, yeah, go ahead. And I went into their bathroom and went through like a half a roll of paper towels, like just pouring out of my nose. And I came out of the bathroom and I was stunned. And I was like, dude, you have changed my mind on all of this now. And he was like, I told you, believe me now, I told you. And it was so crazy that when I left, I was maybe 5 minutes down the road and I had to call him. And I was like, look, not only do I feel like I'm not sick, I feel like I was never sick to begin with. And so I was like, okay, you've sold me on all of this.
Yeah.
And it kind of made me mad because I was like, you know, it made me have a resentment, like we were talking earlier, towards Western doctors. It made me not have a lot of faith in them.
Yeah.
And he was like, look, don't be mad. Don't get angry at them. They have their place. He was like, you know, if you're sick, if there's something wrong with you and you don't know what it is, anything like that, you come to me. If you break your arm, you go to a Western doctor.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Their place is emergency surgery, you know. So he was like, so don't get mad at them. You know, they do have a place, but you know, if you feel sick or anything like that, just come to me from now on.
That's kind of.
And I've been going to him for 11 years now, and I like I said earlier, he is a magician.
And
like,
he doesn't even speak much English. Like
Yeah.
it's pretty rough, and she speaks pretty good English, and the fact that they can do that is crazy. But Armin and I were saying that the other day, where it's like, what is kind of a benefit of Western medicine when you like really get down to it? It is kind of the emergency surgery type thing, broken limb, even like getting an MRI or something like that. That's important. But they also have this tool at the office that is this German-made sensor.
yeah, it's incredible.
And you just hold these two metal rods in your hand, and it sends electricity throughout their body, and then it maps out your entire body and like what like everything, like it shows like maybe if your cholesterol is a little high, it shows how much nicotine's in your body, it shows your alkalinity. They actually, what was crazy for me is they said I was overly alkaline,
Yeah, I was too.
which sweet, but I was like, that's crazy. That was really amazing for me. And one little testament that I feel like also made me more sympathetic to Eastern medicine, I'll just say this really quickly, was when I was studying abroad in Amsterdam, I developed like a sty or something called a chalazion in my eye, which is like an oil deposit from being in a dirty place. And it did not go away for a month and a half, and it was really bothering me and actually depressing me because it was just like ugly and people could tell, and you're walking around with it. And eventually I was like, let me just go see if there's like a Chinese doctor here, something Eastern that I can go do. And so I was actually in the red light district, found this doctor in the red light district, and I showed him my eye, and then he made me show him my tongue, which is kind of they can read the tongue sometimes to tell how you're doing. And then we went upstairs, did some acupuncture, did some suction cups on my back, gave me some herbs, and in 3 days, the chalazion / sty was gone. And I was like, holy shit, what is going on? Because I tried everything all the time. So, to anybody who's watching this that is skeptical about Eastern medicine or more, homeopathic, naturopathic care, you need to just experience it for yourself.
Yeah, he's amazing. I recommend him to everyone. And everyone that I've sent to him has had nothing but positive reactions and positive things to say.
And they're extremely sweet people. One, you can text her if you need to. She'll reply. Facebook friends. They even came and saw our Houston Ensemble show.
I thought that was so awesome. I saw the post.
And he was drinking a Bud Light, and I was like, okay, let's still get down once in a while.
Yeah.
Let's still party.
Yeah, they're great.
I'll add one last thing, because people might not even consider this, but the veterinary industry is just as corrupt.
Yep.
As the ones you would go to. The thing we have in this situation, it's actually very clear. If you go back to the established writings in the early 19th century of the Rockefeller Medical Foundation, some of their primary goals was to eliminate the overabundance of Eastern medicines in the Americas, and also to create a host of pharmaceuticals that they would administer for whatever they can think of. Basically, a money tree that they were making for medicine.
It's a money-making business.
And the veterinary industry has copied this system to the T. So if you go to check on your cat or dog or whatever, they're not going to treat the ailment. They're going to prolong the symptoms and pretend to treat those symptoms until they've gotten thousands and thousands of dollars out of you. And maybe those treatments might actually help your animal. But a lot of times what happens is it prolongs the inevitable death. And then you're on death's door with your animal, and they say, well, you can euthanize them for $300. And after that, you can cremate them for $600. And after that, we'll give you a nice vial for $800. And then you realize, if you're really awake to what's going on and you understand business, that they're totally screwing you. And they don't give a fuck.
One thing that was kind of upsetting when I was first visiting Dr. Chang is, he gave me the test that you're talking about. He has 2 tests, the one with the rods and then the one where he puts the little, I don't know what you call it, like a reflex tool, but it has a spring in it. Have you gotten that one from him? And so if you take these tests, it's basically like getting an awesome version of like an MRI or something, you know what I mean? And it takes like 5 minutes for both of them. And I was like, why don't... It blew my mind, because it's a graph that comes out. It reads everything.
Yeah.
It even reads, quote-unquote, invisible organs. I asked him, why don't Western doctors use this? And he was like, because they don't believe in it.
No, they're literally indoctrinated also to only believe in this system that they've essentially concocted.
Yeah.
And it's not even so much because you said, they can treat a broken bone. So they have interesting tools and they have really fascinating stuff that they can do for you. But it's just that they've literally been taught not to really treat the underlying diseases.
Yeah.
They've really been taught not to really make people healthy,
Yeah.
but to make a buck out of what's happening to them.
Mm-hmm.
And I say all these things because recently I had to, I watched my cat die because I'm a traditional guy. I was not going to euthanize my cat, and I was not going to leave it in the hospital to die. And I knew that the time had come. So I slept with her that night, and she was going, every minute I could see a little bit of her soul go away, and her eyes were looking hazy, which, she was, she was pretty much dead, but she was fighting.
Yeah, it's coming.
Yeah. And I got pissed, man, because I was in that doctor's office and I was arguing with those doctors like I'm telling them what's up. I'm like, you people are just evil. Like,
Yep.
Number one, you know about this much more than me, and all I did is read a couple of books. So basically, what I'm being indicated here is that you're half the professional you claim to be. And second, you're telling me, okay, well, we're going to need $1,200 out of you because we're just going to try to stabilize her, but she might also die. So that's going to be $222 for a resuscitation. Do we have your permission for $222? And I'm hearing her say this so rapidly. Meanwhile, she doesn't even have a diagnosis.
Yeah. They're very cold. I'm sorry to hear that, man. I'm a cat person myself. I have 3 babies at home, and
Some content for you.
Yeah.
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 Mm-mm-mm.
That was unfortunate.
Yeah, that's how it's gonna happen. But I'm glad I'm realizing, sitting with you guys and talking about this right now, because now I'm smart. Now I'm smarter about it, and now I can make better decisions. So I thank you, and I thank the truth.
Yeah.
Well, and there are, I don't know if there are in Houston, but I'm sure there are. There's, animal acupuncturists.
That's
I've never done it
crazy-
myself with my animals, but if it helps us, I'm sure it helps them.
Yeah.
That's
That's
a
a good
crazy
idea.
a thing. But one thing that I wanted to jump to, I kind of wanted to get a little, almost more background out of Ryan, just for people who know, and I think that this is cool. Can you talk a little bit about your tattooing, where you tattoo at, and the 26-year history?
Okay. So I started off, I'm lucky, I'm 43 years old, and I started when I was 17. I started at a place in Galveston. It's no longer open. The lady that taught me how to tattoo actually retired this year. But the name of the shop was Body Language Tattoo. The lady that taught me, her name was Susie McCamey. She's still out there. She's a wonderful human being. She taught me and several other people how to tattoo throughout the years. Ran her shop for, I don't know, probably 35 years, at least, I would think. And I'm blessed to have come in when I did, because I started learning how to tattoo in, I believe, 95. And it was completely different back then. It's not like it is now at all. I still love it, but it is very much different, and it's just not the same. When I started tattooing, when I had my apprenticeship, I believe there were 23 shops inside the loop in 1995. Now there's like 380 or something like that. So the business is oversaturated. No one really gets traditional apprenticeships anymore. So it's changed a lot. Everyone, back in the day, you would go into the shop, meet your tattooer, or just go in there drunk and get a tattoo. But you would usually make, if you weren't just partying and out, getting drunk and getting a tattoo, you would usually go in and make a relationship with whoever's tattooing you, and kind of get to know them and get to know their art and their style, especially if you were doing some kind of a custom piece and not just a flash piece off the wall. But nowadays it's not like that. It's all like on the Instagram and this robotic world that we live in now. So it's very different. I try not to be the old, jaded guy, but sometimes I kind of am when it comes to tattooing. Like I say, I still love it. It's given me the freedom to do all the other things I do, as, music and Western mystery schools and things like that, keeping my animals, doing the zoo thing. So it's cool still. But I started there at Body Language in Galveston. I worked there for about 2 years. Then I moved to Houston and started working at a place called Lucky Star that was open for a couple years. Then I went to a shop called Hot Stuff Deluxe, which later on turned into Amazing Tattoo. I worked there for 11 years. Then I went to a shop called Secret Tattoo. I'm not real sure how long I worked there, maybe 7 years, 6 years. And now I'm at a place called Flying Squid Tattoo over in the Heights.
That's where I got mine.
Oh, cool. Who did it?
I so sorry I don't remember your name, man, but he was highly recommended to me. He's a metalhead with dreads, a tall white
Neil.
guy.
That was Neil.
Neil?
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, Neil doesn't tattoo anymore, unfortunately.
Really?
I'm not real sure what he does now. We kind of lost touch with him. But yeah, he was a cool guy. Fun to work with.
I designed this, and I gave it to him, and he just filled in the blanks, and he did a great job, and he just knew what I wanted.
I think Neil is doing web design or something like that now.
Okay.
And I've heard a lot of great things about Flying Squid Tattoo. And I saw a tattoo that you posted the other day. It was a tiger
Oh, cool, yeah.
with some mint
Mhm.
green in it. And I remember somebody was like, I always know you're mint. And
Yeah,
I was like, that's the perfect
that was a
way
good
to describe
compliment. That
color.
compliment came from a tattooer in San Antonio
Oh, cool.
that I know, Rosendo Gonzalez. He's a cool dude. He works at a place called Mr. Lucky's, and the guy that owns that place, Weldon Lewis, I've been friends with forever. He's a top dog in San Antonio, in my opinion.
Yeah.
What else can I say about tattooing quickly?
I have a question that maybe you would come to as a tattoo artist. What are you specifically particular about what you tattoo on people?
No, I'll do anything on anybody these days. I just prefer that they at least, well, nowadays, I guess I should say I'm appointment only. So I don't do walk-ins anymore. I've been appointment only for probably 10 years. And I just prefer, I'll do anything anybody wants, but I just prefer that they look at my portfolio, which is on Instagram and Facebook nowadays, to see kind of what my style looks like. And then I turn whatever it is they want into my style, and usually they're super happy about it, but sometimes people will be, I guess you could say I do more of a traditional style, but sometimes people will send me like portraits and super hyper realistic stuff, and I'm like, no, you need to look at my portfolio first, and if you don't like that, I'll recommend you to this guy that I work with that does that style, but yeah, I'll do anything. I still do, if someone's referred to me and they still are getting like a new tattoo, their first tattoo, and it's something real small, I'll still do it, even if it's just simple lettering. I don't mind doing that. I do have a minimum that I charge, so it's kind of hard to get away with doing something real small. And I prefer these days to do, I do one tattoo a day that usually takes about 3 to 4 hours of tattoo time, and I prefer to do it that way, especially since I've been tattooing so long, so I can dedicate the whole day to that person, do their drawing in front of them. I make it a real one-on-one thing, which I think is kind of missing from the industry these days.
Oh, yeah.
I completely
Neil
agree.
smoked me out, and
Yeah.
Neil just, it was fun.
Yeah, it's like come in, chill with us, we'll talk. It's like a little philosophy club.
Unfortunately, my first tattoo ever, this thing right here, was done at 713, and I was really eager to get it, and my cousin drew it, and she had this whole drawing done for me, and I was fresh on all that, so maybe I was unsure of like etiquette and stuff, but I don't think I did anything wrong. And Homer gave me the tattoo, owner of 713, and it was cool. It looks good, but I could tell from all my later tattoo experience that he didn't care, actually. And I just also remember him being like, God damn, there are like a lot of little lines in here. And I'm like, well, no shit.
Yeah. Tattooers will definitely let you know if they're not having a good day most of the time.
And then I think I came in he was like, come in at like 10 a.m. and we're going to just do it early. It won't even take too long. It took probably like an hour and a half. And I was like, one, they were really late. That's fine. That's totally fine.
Like 1:30 kind of thing.
No, like an hour later.
Oh, okay.
And then they're talking about how fucked up they were last night. And I was like, damn, dude, I really hope you're not super hungover right now or super methed over right now, because I need this to look good. And so that taught me a lot. And I've gotten a lot of tattoos since, and I have a different appreciation for different artists.
Yeah, it's definitely better, in my opinion, to get to know your tattooer in real life
Yeah.
before you get it, and you can always have a consultation, especially if it's something custom. Like show them what you want, go meet up with them, be like, okay, is this guy cool? Is this guy a dick?
Let me get your opinion on
Did
this.
you party last night?
Yeah.
Oh,
That's cool.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's obviously well done.
I thought that this might be one of the most well dones of.
I mean,
well-done ones.
it's pretty much exactly like the original,
And
which is kind of what you need for something specific like that, I think.
it took a long time.
Who did that one for you?
Pat Schrader in Austin, Texas.
Okay.
And
Austin's full of amazing tattooers now. It's kind of crazy.
I was just like referred to him from a friend, emailed him that he did really great work, and we were doing a trip to Austin to get our upright bases fixed, me and my friend. And I thought it was going to be small. And then he printed it out, and I was like, oh, shit, that's huge. I'm down.
Yeah.
And that spot.
Oh, that's one of the
hurt a
worst,
lot,
man.
dude.
That's one of the worst.
By like the end of the 4th hour, and we went straight through.
You were dying.
Which, maybe 4 hours is bitch stuff to some people. I get it, whatever. But by the end of the 4th hour, I was on the verge of tears.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're a
4
rocker.
hours for me, I'm like, I'm done.
Yeah.
Like, I'm done.
And I was like, my body was like shaking a little bit.
Yeah.
And we had to drive back home, and I was like, dude, I need to eat something,
Yeah.
or I'm going to pass out on the way home.
Mm-hmm.
But totally worth it. And one question that I had for you, since you might be thinking about this stuff, can a tattoo artist put energy? I mean, obviously they're putting energy into a tattoo. Let me just make it really perverse. Could you curse a tattoo while you're giving it to them? Do you think about that at all?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a talisman, if you will. I even do, I don't really advertise it. It's more of a word of mouth thing. I'll do what I call ritual tattoos, to where the person can come in, there's a ritual performed, and their tattoo is an actual name or sigil for a specific intention on their body. And that's definitely, a charged up talisman. I think, like, okay, for example, there's a guy, I won't name names, but there's a guy, not from our state, he's from California. Well, he was, I don't know where he's at now. Came to do a guest spot at our shop, and one of the guys that I work with was like, I'm going to get tattooed by this guy. And we were like, okay, we hadn't met him yet, we're like, hey, he's a good tattooer. And he shows up, and the guy is a total jackass dickhead. And we were like, wow, I'm not getting tattooed by this guy. You know what I mean? And our one friend that was a great tattooer was still like, I'm still going to get tattooed by him. So he tells the guy, like, I want a Japanese money frog on my foot. And the dude was straight up, and he thought this guy was very egotistical. He just thought he was, the shit. And he couldn't draw it. So he's like, you know what? I've been doing hands and roses. That's what I want to do. And he's like, well, that's not what I asked for. He ended up getting a bat on his foot, which wasn't what he asked for at all. And to me, it doesn't even look like a bat. And to this day, the guy's like, man, I never should have got tattooed by that guy. I didn't get what I wanted. He was an asshole the whole time he tattooed me. I think he said something like, that's the best tattoo you have on your body. You know what I mean? And it's like...
Whoa.
So yeah, it's like, I do think that, you're putting energy into a tattoo. You're creating an experience, it's a ritual.
Yeah.
And, if you have a bad experience, it's a mark for life also. So anytime you look at it, you're going to be like, that was a shitty experience.
Yeah.
That guy was an asshole.
Yeah.
So that's why I always tell people, like, get to know your guy. I tell people, like, I don't think that I'm a bad tattooer, but I'm definitely not the best in the world or anything like that. I definitely think I'm good for as long as I've been doing it. But I tell people, like, look, the reason I have return clientele isn't because of my tattooing, really. It's because my clients become my friends.
Yeah.
They have a good experience. they get a good tattoo out of it also. But 9 times out of 10, they're coming back to me because they're like, man, I like hanging out with Ryan. He's fun to hang out with. I got a great tattoo. It was cool. It was a cool experience.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I think a lot of my return clientele is really from that more than my artwork. Like, they like my artwork, don't get me wrong. But I think that that's an important part of tattooing that is totally missing these days is, you know, having that experience. There is this guy, Philip Liu, who's famous in the tattoo world. And they kind of had a very bohemian hippie family that all lived in this big house. And it was like, if you got tattooed by him or anybody in his family, you were going to go stay with them for like 3 or 4 days.
That's
and like
cool.
cook food with them and meditate with them and smoke with them. And like, it was a whole thing, you know?
Wow.
And so I try to give a little bit of that within, you know, a 5 or 6 hour, 7 hour time span of when someone's coming to get a tattoo from me.
Yeah.
You know?
What I enjoyed about Neil is I told him that the point of my tattoo, what it meant to me, it's based on the ancient Armenian symbol of infinity, and I was like, you know, this represents to me like kind of like my ancient people, you know, that
ancestry,
my ancestry, and how we've survived like millennia through all sorts of shit, and we're still here, baby. And he got that, and he's like, okay, you need some geometry, and he's like, you know, you need something representing infinity, so he filled in all the blanks. And it was just perfect because he understood my vibe, and I was like, wow, so this is like personalized treatment. Like, this is what you want. Because I also, how much did I spend on that? At least $700. So,
Couple sessions?
No, just one.
Okay.
I said, fuck it, let's do it.
Hell yeah.
I was there for maybe 5-6 hours. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you had a good experience at the shop.
I did, yeah. It was
We
good.
try to keep it a chill atmosphere. Everybody that works there is kind of
Flying
on the same
Squid.
level. Yeah.
Flying Squid. I want to go.
Yeah.
I was like, should we do like a tattoo live on the podcast?
We can if you guys want in the future.
Yeah, I definitely want to come there, and actually, you know, it'd be cool to get a tattoo from you in the future.
Yeah.
Just to
I'd love to do it.
round circle it. Okay, let's jump into something analogous. Let's talk about the occultism. Let's talk about
My favorite topic.
You run the Temple of the Golden Dawn here. I'm not even saying that right.
So I'm a member of several, I like to call them Western mystery schools, secret societies, whatever you want to call them. The ones that I consider a big part of my life, I prefer to call Western mystery schools because they're actually schools. They're not just a fraternity or a society. So I'm a member of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn and the Rosicrucian Order of Alpha et Omega. I'm a member of the Kemetic Orthodoxy. I'm a member of the Builders of the Adytum. I'm a Mason. What else? I'm a member of 2 other Western mystery schools that I'm not super active in anymore that I won't publicly name because I don't know if the guy that runs them has publicly announced them yet. One's Egyptian, one's Rosicrucian. So yeah, and I'm super active in the AO and
What's the AO?
so that's the branch of the Golden Dawn that I'm in, the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn and the Rosicrucian Order of Alpha et Omega. So yeah, any questions y'all have about that, I'm more than willing to talk about. I can talk about, like I said earlier, I can talk about as much as I can without breaking oaths, but I can talk about a lot of it, really.
You know, I was thinking so much about how to focus this area of the podcast because there's about 1 billion questions I could ask, and there's so many authors that I've been checking out. You know, Blavatsky, Manly Hall, and even a little bit of Crowley, and even a little bit of
Yeah. Pull up that list. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, and there was one subject in particular. Because I was thinking about, you know, what can I do that's entertaining, but what can we do that's like super edgy? And I want to let you know that I don't necessarily expect that, number one, you would have this much information about this, or that even I'm accurate in my reading of the situation. But what I've noticed is that there is a kind of a not even so much hidden, but in these texts there's typically a point in which we get to the subject of Lucifer in some regard, and I don't know what to make of it because, admittedly, I come from Orthodox Christianity, and I'm not even super religious whatsoever, and I haven't been to church in so very many years for various reasons, but I'm trying to understand why there's a kind of a romanticization over Lucifer, and I don't want to put any words in your mouth, but on one angle it could be like maybe they want to make something that was thought of as evil into something good. Maybe we don't need to think of it as evil, and they're genuinely trying to use that image as a good thing.
Yeah, it depends on the source because, right now, I think right now, honestly, Satanism is being pushed onto the public, and I'm completely against that. But
can you talk to us about what you mean by that? How is it being pushed?
Well, if you look at what's that musician's name?
You talking about the rapper?
There's that guy. That made the whole where he's giving Satan a lap dance and putting the shoes out with the blood in them, and there's what is that chick's name? She's real popular.
Is it Gaga or
Maria?
Madonna or is
No, it's not Maria.
Oh,
She's
Abramovich.
She's not really a musician, though.
Oh yeah, that woman. No, I don't. I'm not a fan of her either. I can't think of her name. Anyway, she's a musician. Lots of younger girls are really into her. And
Eilish, Billie Eilish.
No, I'll think of her name.
Yeah.
But she did this whole campaign when Donald Trump was president and was like, go out and hex him and hex all of his followers.
Whoa.
And it's just okay, yeah, you're promoting these young girls to go out and put a blind hex spell just blindly on whole masses of people, and it's that is the worst advice you could possibly give, and people look to these types of celebrities
Ryan, you mind being in here?
as icons.
It's actually great. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's picking it up cool.
You're perfect.
What is her name? I'll think of it. But yeah, there's a lot of that going on. And
what is that? What's this what's this obsession? What is that?
I think that it's I try to be level-headed about it because I think that there's a big thing with a lot of people against Christianity, and I get it. It's look at the Vatican. And I don't want to get too crazy, but I am no fan of the Vatican.
Right.
But I also understand the purpose of Christianity. I'll say why I don't like the Vatican. If you look at the Vatican, for example, everyone knows the Shroud of Turin, right? Mm-hmm. So it's they have the Shroud of Turin. This is just one example of many. It's they have the Shroud of Turin.
Explain to the people what some people will not know what that is.
Okay, I'll tell you what the Shroud of Turin is, and then I'll tell you a real cool story about what I think it is. So the Shroud of Turin is essentially what is believed to be the cloth that they covered Jesus Christ with after they pulled him off the cross and put him in the tomb. And then after he resurrected or whatever, anyway, the cloth has an image of a man on it, and you can plainly see a face and facial hair and all of this, right? So they have this artifact, and if you're an anthropologist or anything like that, you can petition the Vatican to study it, but I think it's once every 5 years or 7 years, they'll pull it out for only a team of 10 or 15 people, and they'll show it to them for 5 minutes. And they're whoop,
and
we're done.
Real quick, does that have anything to do with the archive? Is that in the archive?
Yeah, it's in the archive where they have, I think they have the whole Library of Alexandria, everything that survived. They have so much stuff that they're not going to, that's what I mean. It's we know they have the Shroud of Turin, and they're only going to let people see it for 5 minutes every 7 years. So it's what do they have that we don't know about? Tons of stuff.
50 miles of shelving underneath the Vatican in the secret archive. It's almost impossible to go down there as a researcher because you have to go down there, you have to know what you want to see. You cannot say, hey, can I just go down there and look? No, you have to actually have the exact title. And then if you have it wrong, you literally cannot come back that same day. You have to schedule it again.
Yeah.
So there are
and I'm sure it's
rules.
Years and years waiting list, it's crazy. But But the point of me bringing that up is I think they're suppressing this stuff because it is spiritual technology. And they don't want the public to be empowered by individual empowerment. They want the church has to control everything. And so I get it, a lot of people have been hurt by Christianity and the church as children and taught things that weren't right, but it's like, look, you can't hold that against whole groups of people. That's no different than saying, all cops are bad or all black people are bad. It's lumping people into a small group. It's like, the Vatican is corrupt, but every Catholic person is not an evil person. I know many Catholics that are some of the greatest human beings I've ever met in my life because they're really doing the work and trying to help others and being humble, you know what I mean? And that's the point, It's like you can't say like, well, screw this whole entire group of people. But I think with Christianity, especially here in the United States, a lot of people have been hurt in the past, so they're like, they just hate it. And so I think that has brought up this Satanist aspect more because it's the complete opposite of it. They're like, well, we hate this, so we're going to embrace this, and it's like, no, man, you're getting completely off track here.
And people will literally say that. They'll say, like, well, they've been so pressed by Christianity. Like, I have friends who have said this. We're so pressed by Christianity, it's time to embrace, like, something opposite of that.
Yeah. And there's tons of stuff out there that you can embrace, but it's like Satanism. I hate the whole thing, too, where people are like, oh, I'm a Satanist, and it's like, cool, you worship the devil, and they're like, no, we don't even believe in the devil. But it's like, well, then why are you called a Satanist? You know what I mean? Like, come on, man, words have meanings. You know what I mean?
I'll tell you something that I want to see what you think. Looking back at the roots of monotheistic religions, and right before we begin to see the popularity of Abrahamic religions, we have an onslaught in Zoroastrianism. We have an onslaught of like religions in which there's a couple of different gods, and typically what's associated is some sort of ritualistic sacrifices. Because people didn't know any better. They thought, okay, well, the gods exist, so they must want something in return so that we can get their favor.
Yeah.
And there's particularly a couple of godheads that come to mind. The biggest one of which is a guy named Moloch. And so when I think about the emergence of Luciferianism, Satanism, they're a little different, but I think that what has happened is those religions went underground because society en masse was like not down anymore for a lot of their rituals, the blood rituals. So they went underground. They still existed, and they've been waiting to re-emerge into the public and in some sense kind of take back the world from the Christian takeover, right?
Well, I think that they've been continuing this whole time.
Right.
I don't think that I think a lot of that stuff still exists. I do not deny the fact at all. I really, truly think that there are a lot of people in power that practice black magic, and they use it it's all for control. You know what I mean? And that's not what I'm into. I'm into what they call high magic, which is strictly for spiritual evolution. So I'll tell you, the point of most of these Western mystery schools is, especially like, Golden Dawn type orders, the point is, it's no different than, it's essentially the Western version of being a Taoist monk, except you're to live in public. You're not to live in solitary in a monastery or anything like that. You do the same work. The goal is the same. And what that goal is you work on yourself through rituals, through meditation, so that, it's kind of hard to explain in a short version, but I want to say this because this goes back to the Shroud of Turin, and what I think it is that, you work on yourself, you do the spiritual work your whole life. It's a lifelong process, and the goal of this is to break the wheel of incarnation, so at the moment of death, so through your work, you have created a quote-unquote solar body. The Taoists call it a rainbow body. And at the moment of death, you can project your consciousness into this rainbow body or solar body and become a immortal being on a different dimension, essentially, right? And this is the same through a lot of these mystery traditions, whether it's East or West. Like, that's the final goal, is to stop reincarnating and having to, because that's what we're here for. We're here on this planet to learn lessons. And if you fail the lesson, you're going to keep getting taught that lesson over and over until you pass the test. So this is why some people go thousands of lifetimes, because they're just not learning the lesson. So, a lot of these Western mystery schools, and, Taoist monks especially, it's like that's what you're doing. You're forcing these things to happen in front of you in the material world so you can break the wheel. And that's what I think the Shroud of Turin is. So I think the Shroud of Turin is that I've only heard one person say this, and I can't remember his name, but it was on an episode of Ancient Aliens, and I was like, yes, someone finally said it. But what I think the Shroud of Turin is I think it's a photograph.
Oh, shit.
I think that whether it was Jesus Christ or someone else that was crucified that was an adept of the mystery traditions, if you will, I think what happened is that when they took him down from whatever type of torture he was getting, there was blood, there was urine all over this cloth, and he did project his consciousness out into his solar body, and it created a flash of light. And because of the conditions on the cloth, it created a photograph. And I think the Vatican knows this, and they don't want people to know that that's a potential reality.
Oh, shit.
Because it's self-empowering.
Have you seen photographs of the Vatican meeting room?
With the one that looks like a snake?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Isn't
just
that
like,
interesting?
isn't that just the sanctuary?
I've seen the one that looks like a snake. I've seen the one where
That's
it's
what
like
I'm
behind
talking
him. It
about.
just looks
Yeah.
like hell raising up
Yeah.
out of the ground.
I think
with-
that's
Yeah.
the same room.
That's the
so
room, yeah.
like, I'm pretty sure that's like maybe the main sanctuary, like where
Okay.
they would hold mass.
Right.
And we will put pictures in
Yeah.
for this.
Well, and if you look at the Catholic Church, they are doing ceremonial magic right in
are.
front of people's
They are.
faces, and they're saying they're not.
I
This-
know.
this
It's
whole
insane.
thing-
It's insane.
Is a ritual.
Tell us about that. The cross.
Consecrating and purifying. When you see them slinging
Right.
water on people and
Right.
swinging incense around, that's
Yeah.
consecration and purification.
And I'll be honest with you, I don't trust members of the Catholic Church with those kinds of powers. I don't when I see them do it, and when I see the Pope do it, okay? I'm not a fan. I don't know what he's representing or what he thinks he's representing. I don't even think he's representing Christ. I don't think he's representing light. I don't know.
Well, this goes back to ancient Egypt.
I was just gonna.
All of
mention
this goes
There
back to
you
ancient
go.
Egypt, because when they look, historians know absolutely nothing about pre-dynastic Egypt. We like to act like we
Yeah.
do, but we
Thank
don't.
you.
And all of this started there, because basically when the priesthood figured out, like, okay, we can keep the public out and charge money for this. I mean, that's what started it all, because it's like I say, they don't want the people to be able to empower themselves. It's a money-making business, and it's a business of control. And like I say, I'm not bashing religion, because religion is here to guide and regulate humanity. But everybody's at different levels of spirituality, and that's completely fine. That's the way it's supposed to be, because if everyone was at the same level, there would be no point in being here in this material world. You know what I mean? Everything would just be easy.
Yeah.
And, it's not supposed to be easy. So, I'm definitely not bashing religion. I think that, like I say, I know plenty of Catholics. Some of my best friends from high school that I still keep in contact with are devout Catholics, and they're some of the greatest people I've ever met in my life. But they are open-minded enough that I can talk about things like this with them, about their own religion, and we can debate about it without anybody getting mad. You know what I mean?
Just for there are a couple things that I want to get into. Just almost like a clearing of the playing field or the understanding field. One question that I have for you as a Freemason. First, can you tell me like what degree you are?
I'm not supposed to say.
Okay. Second, do you think, and maybe it's okay if you can't say, do you agree with or think that Freemasonry is actually a version of Luciferianism?
So Freemasonry is not at all what the general public has made it out to be. Back in the day, 100 years ago and before, if you were going to join the majority of Western mystery schools, a lot of the times it was required that you be a Mason first.
Right.
And that is because really, you know, all these people are like, oh, he's a 33rd degree Mason or he's a 32nd degree Mason and all of this. And it's like, really, there's the 3 degrees are the most important. That's when you become a Master Mason. And really, the other stuff is just kind of supplemental. And orders like the Golden Dawn. Like the Golden Dawn was started by 3 Masons. And I believe in the beginning, if you were a male, it was definitely recommended that you were a Mason first. And really, it's because Masonry is not a magical society at all. There's no magic in it. There's no ceremonial magic in it. There's teachings, especially if you get into like the Scottish Rite, that Kabbalah starts to come up in there and things like that. So you're taught about mysticism and magic, but you don't practice it at all in Masonry at all. And anybody that says that you do is lying. And granted, you know, they like to say, oh, the people in control are Masons and this and that. And it's like, yeah, they might be Masons, but the group that they're in who's doing all of this stuff is something outside of that.
Mm-hmm.
Masonry is simply to create, to take men and make them better. And it's more of a fraternity than a I don't want to say than a Western mystery school, but it's definitely more of a fraternity than like a secret society that involves ceremonial magic. There's none of that in Masonry whatsoever. Now they do have rituals, you know, for their initiations and things like that, which I can't talk about initiations and what goes on in them really, but they're not what people think at all. Like there's a huge misconception out there about Masonry, in my opinion. Masonry is suggested, like I say, if you're going to branch out and join other Western mystery schools, a lot of the times I do think it's better to become a Mason first because it's kind of like the preschool before going into an actual Western mystery school. It teaches you how to behave and interact inside of a lodge. It teaches you what the roles of different officers in the lodge are for. And a lot of things, even the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, you know, a lot of their initiations are based off of kind of Masonic rituals. The floor work, if you will, is very similar.
Yeah.
The stations and where the officers are and what the officers' roles are and what they do, it's all very similar. But it's definitely not what people think. Like, they're not running the world. And it's like, yeah, some of these elitists probably are Masons and have gone through Masonry.
What about a bunch of celebrities? You know, there's just countless upon countless pictures of celebrities, either one wearing something that is Masonic or two enacting the secret symbols that you'd find in the manuals of Freemasonry.
So I think a lot of that stuff is just for shock value and cool points. You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, they don't know what they're doing. You see all these people doing this thing, and it's like, I guarantee you ask most of these people what that is there, and I have no idea.
How about like actually a different one? How about maybe one of these, or a hidden hand? Or
I think that they're just doing it because they see other people do it, and they're trying to be edgy. See, that's the thing with a lot of the occult.
Really?
I'll tell you a funny story. There was a guy. So me and several of my friends that are involved in, you know, these Western mystery schools went to an event maybe like 7 years ago at this point in Austin called SOMA, Society of the Magical Arts. And it's a cool organization. It's a cross-tradition organization. They had a weekend of seminars, and it was people from all types of different traditions. And so this one guy showed up. His name is David Beth. And he is, I guess you could call him a Voodoo practitioner, but he's also a Gnostic. So he practices a form of Gnostic Voodoo. And he's very, what you could say, quote-unquote, left-hand path. And I think that a lot of the people that were there we're very much into this left-hand path aspect.
Can you
What is it?
describe
Yeah,
left, is that
So
sinister?
So, I mean, a lot of people think that it is. It's a complicated subject because it all has to do with the tree of life. So there's the middle path, the right-hand path, and the left-hand path. The middle path would be what's considered like the major religions are all pretty much middle path. It's like you just have faith and go up the middle path. You don't need to work with the other sides. Now, the left and right paths or pillars are opposites. It's a polarity thing. It's male, feminine, active, passive.
Are the
right?
Masonic pillars coming from the tree of life in a sense? The right, left.
Yeah.
Black and white.
Yeah, and the Golden Dawn pillars are definitely representing the tree of life.
Okay.
Yes. But so, a lot of people like to say the right-hand path is more of a righteous path. The left-hand path is more of like a self-serving path. A lot of people like to equate it to Satanism, but it's not, because you're still going to the top of the tree of life. That's why it's kind of a complicated subject, because a lot of people will say like, well, yes, it is, and a lot of people will say, no, it's not, and it's a whole huge debate in itself. But getting back to this story, I think a lot of these people that were into left-hand path because they thought it was like edgy were like excited to see this guy. And I believe he's European. I'm not exactly sure where he's from. But he came in and it was hilarious because he was like, right off the bat, he was like, okay, who here... Well, I'm trying to remember what he said first. Basically, he came in and he was like, look, if you're here because you think that this is cool and edgy and you're cool because you're in the occult and, it's dark and all of this, like, you should stand the fuck up and get out right now. Like, that's not what this is for. If you like Crowley, tell me what Crowley did. You know what he did? He failed and he died. So if you think Crowley's cool, like, stand up and get the fuck out right now. And I was like, wow, that is not what I was expecting this guy to say at all.
He failed and he died. I think I know what you mean. What can you explain that?
Well, Crowley is a whole subject in its own too. Crowley was a member of the Golden Dawn, and he got kicked out essentially because he was causing strife, trying to cause schisms. He was making a lot of waves in the original order, and he was also stealing documents and books and putting them out as his own, and they were not his. He stole a lot of stuff from MacGregor Mathers, who was one of the founders of the Golden Dawn. And they had a whole falling out too, because MacGregor Mathers initiated him into the Second Order without the consent of a bunch of other people. He really didn't need consent, but it did cause a lot of problems. And it's still controversial whether or not he was even really initiated into the Second Order. And then, later on in life, Crowley had a lot of bad things happen to him. I think...
Did he die of syphilis?
I think so. And, he was a drug addict, and he kind of died in poverty. And I do think that Crowley did some good things, but I think overall the bad outweighs the good. And, I hate to say it, he was a spoiled rich kid. So I'm kind of like, well, what do you expect, Right. Like, he was very egotistical, and I know he did a lot of it for shock value. He thought that was like a whole transformative thing. But, Crowley is a good example of this whole, like, hip being attracted to the dark side. Like, everybody's automatically like, ooh, Crowley, like, I'm dark, and, like, you've heard all these metal bands singing about Crowley and stuff, and it's just that whole...
The Beatles.
Yeah, it's that whole, dark aspect, and people are attracted to that, and I get it, like it is a gateway to the occult, but I think that a lot of people, once they get into it, they realize, like, oh, okay, this isn't exactly what I thought it was about.
Right.
Real quick interjection.
Yeah.
Speaking of darkness being very cool, a lot of things you see today, just quick example is a lot of youth getting, like, 666 tattooed on them, or like upside down crosses. Now, as like somebody who's aware of all this stuff, somebody who's actually into occultism, would you personally get like a 666 tattooed on you if you don't already?
I wouldn't personally, because of the dogma that's attached to it, but 666 isn't even what people think it is either. That's what I mean. It's like a lot of these people get these images and they have no idea what they even mean. 666 is actually a representation of the sun, not the devil. 666 is the number of the sun. So there are these things called planetary kameas or kameas, however you prefer to say it. And the solar kamea, tablet of the sun, if you want to call it that, is 666 squares. It's 6 squares long, 6 squares up and down, 6 squares diagonally. So that's what that represents to true occultists. It's not
Interesting.
satanic.
So
But
it's
that
been-
could also be equated to where a lot of people say Lucifer is the light bringer and can
Right.
direct you to the sun. That's what I mean. It depends on the context and the source, and it's very deep. Y'all know already. It's like a super deep subject that you can go off in any direction for.
Even something weird like, okay, so you have the kamea of the sun, which I was not aware of, but then you have carbon, the structure of man being 6 protons, neutrons, electrons. Then you have the earth, which is all 666, where the inverse of the tilt is 66.6. The what else is it?
There's a lot.
It's like 3 major facets of the geography of the earth, or the tilt / the radius. It's all coming into 666, and then when you see all that, you're like, oh shit, this is pretty out there.
Yeah, 6 is also the number of the. If you go down the tree of life, the sixth sphere on the tree of life represents the sun.
Okay. Interesting.
I want to for the viewers, just to put into context and why we're talking about, was Alistair good? Is this good? What
real
is
quick, the patents. Don't let me forget the
The
patents.
patents? Oh, okay. What about the patents?
With the numbers.
Oh boy.
But keep going with what you're saying.
Yeah, that's a lot. But I'm just gonna read a quote. This is from just one translation of what is called the commentary on the Book of Law, which was allegedly written by Aleister Crowley. He could have stolen a lot of things. He also wrote the Book of Lies. He also wrote so many other things. But this is just one excerpt from one translation, okay? It says, "The beast 666, which is what he referred to himself as, ordains by his authority that every man and every woman and every intermediately sexed individual shall be absolutely free to interpret and communicate self by means of any sexual practice soever, whether direct or indirect, rational or symbolic, psychologically, legally, ethically, or religiously approved, or no, provided only that all parties to any act are fully aware of all implications and responsibilities thereof. Moreover, the beast 666 adviseth that all children shall be accustomed from infancy to witness every type of sexual act, as also the process of birth, lest falsehood fog and mystery stupefy their minds, whose error else might thwart and misdirect the growth of their subconscious system of soul symbolism." There's a lot to unpack there, but allegedly what this all leads up to is the strong use of sexual energy in ritualistic magic, or at least the way Aleister liked it. And so maybe this is the part where people start to get weird about Aleister, because maybe this has a lot to do with his addictions and his drug use and his egotism, that he starts to involve sex into it a lot, and kids, you know what I mean?
Well, he was, this is 100 years ago plus now, and that was completely radical back then to even almost talk about sex publicly. So I think that Aleister Crowley was the type of guy that, and I get where he was going with this, but it's like, that's not for everyone. He was the type of guy where he's like, break all these restrictions, break all this dogma, and get rid of it, and you'll spiritually grow faster than ever. And it's like, well, yeah, that might be true for some people, but I don't think it's good to go around and preach that. It's like, look at all of these like crazy hippie cults. It's like they all end up having sex with each other, and that's when things go bad, because it's like, that's not for everybody. And when that starts happening, people are going to get hurt from it. Aleister Crowley, for example, there's a huge debate out there about him supposedly raping Israel Regardie.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't know. A lot of people might not know who Israel Regardie is. He was Aleister Crowley's secretary. He released a bunch of the Golden Dawn documents. And that's what I mean. It's a very controversial subject. But when you look into it, regardless of what happened with them, I do believe that there is some hurt there because of all of that. And that's what I mean. It's like, you know, the best way for me to explain it is, like I said, it's like, look at all of these hippie cults that start having sex with each other. It's like, once that starts happening, things start crashing. You know, it's like, you know, it's like, I'm not telling people what to do with their lives, but personally, I'm very monogamous, and I don't think polyamorous relationships really work. I've met tons of people that have done it. Some people have stayed together, some people haven't. But in my personal opinion, and like I say, I'm not trying to tell people how to live their lives, someone always gets their feelings hurt.
That's what we. That's
and
what
I think
about.
I think it's kind of inevitable that that's going to happen. And personally, I would just rather avoid that whole situation.
Right.
And I think, you know, that's what Crowley. I think Crowley wanted to push that. I truly think he was trying to help people spiritually evolve, but he was just way too radical about it, especially for the times, you know. And I think, you know, doing drugs on top of it didn't help the situation. I think it was just things stacking on top. That's what I mean. I think Crowley tried to do good, but he just made a lot of mistakes, in my personal opinion, and paid the price for them ultimately towards the end of his life, you know.
I'm glad you brought up polyamory regarding this kind of thing, because that's something that comes into the discussion a lot sometimes. Sorry. You know, also, I'm noticing that polyamory today is almost becoming a little bit faddish.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think so.
Yeah, okay, it is. I was trying to be nice about it.
I think
it's
so.
Becoming a fad.
Well, I think that's kind of being pushed on people too, you know?
Right. And one thing that I've
maybe
realized,
when you're done, we can push on people, can be a tangent into the stuff we were talking about before the video came on, you know, about the world and stuff.
right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, just a thing to realize, like, when, like you said, somebody's feelings are going to get hurt. If you are somebody who's actually in love with somebody, and they're maybe in love with you, but then for some reason they're also saying, hey, I want to be poly and love multiple people. It's like, we can love multiple people at the same time. I
Yep.
do think that.
Yep.
I mean, we give love to everybody, but then
Yep,
I
totally
think you
agree.
can also develop a romantic love with multiple people at the same time. Not saying you should do that, but I think it's possible. And you know that if you have a special connection with somebody, and, you know, they're your person, they're like a mirror image of yourself. They're somebody who makes you work better. And then you're poly at the same time. And, like, let's say you go home and you're like, hey, are you coming home later? And they're like, no, I'm going to stay out tonight. And you know that's code for, I'm going over to Brian's house to have sex with him tonight, not you.
Right.
And you're like, okay. You're lying if you say you're totally chill.
Right.
I promise you, you're lying. Unless there's maybe some sort of disconnect that was forced upon you or created at some point. And, you know, long story short, it's just interesting that they've made it a fad, and they are pushing a sort of very odd sexual agenda.
No loyalty, no commitment, no feelings, nothing.
No honor.
No honor.
You know,
Just
even chivalry.
forget
You
it.
know, like
Yeah.
being a gentleman.
It's not cool.
It's not cool to open the door and just be nice. Or it's like, yeah, I can lift that.
If you're egoless, you're twerp. You're a weak. You're not
Right.
sexy.
And
If
you know,
you're
I-
ego full, you're the shit.
I appreciate my girlfriend a lot because she's a super strong, independent woman, but she also, you know, loves to be treated like a beautiful woman who I perceive as needing to be cherished and protected. And, you know, if I want to open the door for her, I'll open the door for her. Or open the car door for her. I honestly open the car door for her almost every time we get in the car. And that's something that my dad taught me.
Yep.
And I just want to stick with that because why not? It's not putting anybody down.
Honestly, it's more fun for me.
I think that makes you an awesome person.
Right. And we need to get over
Yeah.
the fad and the pushing of, we're not trying to make 7-year-olds twerk. We're not trying to have all these.
Cause there's that shit going on. We're not even trying to be funny. There's that shit going on.
I'm you know, I want to say what I want to say, but I also want to be careful with that subject because they're pushing it on children a lot.
Yep. It's
And that-
disgusting.
You're right. And you can be who you want to be, but we don't need to push intense sex.
Yeah, kids
on
need to be kids.
Let them be kids. Don't force them anyway. But also don't coerce them in any way.
Yeah.
I
mean, I think we can all agree as dudes here, like, we weren't interested in none of that stuff until we were probably at least 14 years old. You know what I mean? It's like, come on, man, let these kids just be kids. Like,
I think we had
There's only one person that benefits from the hypersexualization of kids, and it's never the kids.
No.
Do you see what I'm saying with that?
No.
Right. And another thing is, let's talk about it real quick. The drag queens that come into school, come into the library and read to the children. By the way, if you want to be a drag queen, I am so fine with that.
Mm-hmm.
Do your thing on your own time. But when I see videos, and I've seen multiple videos, and if you need to see them, we'll send them to you, of showing the children how to twerk, or kind of caressing the kids, or even the drag queen in Houston who was reading to kids at the library, who they later then found out had the sexual assault.
I think there was 2 of them, right?
There were 2, yeah.
Of minors on them. You're like, that's a little bit odd.
There's something else going here that's not organic. There's an agenda going on here.
Oh, what I meant to say, where are the women at?
Yeah.
There are never any women involved in this when it comes to this kind of thing. I mean, of course there are women, around, but this is all men. These are all men dressing up with the children, being around them, teaching them how to twerk. I'm like, what?
Yep.
Disclaimer, not putting anybody down, just worried about the kids.
No, I'm putting you down if you're screwing with the kids.
Yeah, if you're screwing with them.
Yeah, I'm putting you down for that.
You got weird stuff going
we
on.
got to draw a line in the sand. I know it's postmodern, and I know we're all about freedom, but, there's people that will use that goodness for evil.
Well, it's like we live in a bizarro world. It's like everything that is virtuous has been turned around completely ass backwards, and not only pushed on us but pushed on children. And that's what I mean. It's like I said earlier before the cameras came on, it's like, how long are these types of things in the broad array and the broad spectrum that they're being projected at all of us, how long is it going to take for people to wake up and be like, okay, this is happening to us, we are being manipulated?
There are some people waking up for sure, but then it's like almost not enough. Sometimes it feels like. Can you tell us some of the things that are pissing you off about the world, man?
Well, and the old saying, it's got to get a lot worse before it gets better.
Yeah.
I brought this up the other day. We were actually talking about tarot cards, and we were talking about the tower, and it's an image of like a tower that's being destructed, being hit by lightning, and there's people flying out of it, and sometimes there's fire coming out of it, and everyone's like, oh, that's a bad card, and it's like, no, it's not. It's like, what do you do if you get a piece of property with a dilapidated house on it? You got to tear it down before you build a new one.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to plant new crops, you got to burn the field before you put the new seeds in. You know what I mean? So you got to tear the ground up. You know what I mean? So it's like, I think realizing the energy of that force and this time is a good thing. Because it gives you a strange comfort in the fact that, okay, destruction is not necessarily a bad thing. You know what I mean? Like, some things have to be destroyed before the light prevails. So
and that can even be like an attachment to something. Like, you need to destroy your attachment to whatever that might be so that you can become unattached and then, hopefully have a different perspective. And
I think that's what Crowley was trying to do when we go back to this whole sex thing. Like, he was trying to destroy the dogma attached to it and all of this. But, sometimes, like in that case, it doesn't work. But that's the same idea of what he was trying to do, is destroy people's reality so they would come out as a different, with a different, consciousness.
Okay, I'm going to get really specific. We got to talk about this because we are officially at the point where the side effects of the experiments being done on people around the world are becoming more and more public. And in one effort to suppress that, a rhetoric is being pushed that, well, that's because of the people that haven't gotten the experiment. You dig what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So what's happening is that this pseudo logic is being pushed on the people that if you get sick it's someone else. It's the guy that's healthy's fault.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you fall off your bike, it's the guy driving down the street that did that.
Well, that's the same thing that I was saying earlier. It's like we live in bizarro world. It's like everything that is true is false and everything that's false is true, you know?
It's very bizarre. I don't think there's any serious doctor, Eastern or Western, that would go to you, that you'd come to them and be like, man, I have a really bad cold. And he'll be like, well, did your neighbor get the experiment?
Yeah.
It wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that. And so there needs to be discernment in the people. We need to bring back the discernment, but there's this thick layer of fear and irrational thinking.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what's pushing it all, is this fear. The fear being pushed is being pushed for specifically control over the masses. Straight up. Like straight up. And like we were talking about earlier before the cameras came on, they have people scared to death all over the place. And there's an old occult saying, fear is failure, you know, straight up. Like,
yeah.
It is.
One of the worst things to have in your heart is fear.
Yeah. You know, but we are taught to be afraid of all kinds of things. And, you know, a lot of it's for our own safety, but it's like, you know, we're taught to be afraid of death. And it's like, you shouldn't be afraid of death. Like, look at the ancient cultures celebrated death because they knew, hey, this isn't real. This is just a transformation.
Mm-hmm.
And when it came, they would celebrate and, you know, see their family members and their friends off in a glorious way, not compared to nowadays where it's like everyone's sad and, I don't know what's going to happen when this day comes to me. You know what I mean? And it's like, you shouldn't fear a lot of the things that are pushed on you by society these days, especially with what we're talking about specifically here. It's like, you know, there's so much in the media that's just fear mongering, and it's out of control. I honestly at this point don't know how it's going to turn around.
Even good you said fear mongering, because I used that word earlier on a post that I put on our Houston Ensemble Instagram story. One of the spokespeople in Australia was saying, now's not the time to even be friendly to your neighbor anymore. If they want to engage in conversation, don't do that. They said no more, don't even be around anybody. And they're being friendly and nice, don't do it. And I was like, oh my God.
We'll pull up that clip.
They're saying that because they're like, they might hurt you. They might get you sick.
Right.
They might rat on you for saying something wrong. You know, and it's like, come on, man. Like,
they're dividing people.
This fear is becoming too invasive.
Yeah.
In everyone's life at this point, in my opinion. So, I mean, honestly, like I say, I don't know. It's going to be an interesting next decade.
Yeah. But also,
You know?
like, for a lot of people who are really, really scared of what's going on right now, if you were that scared, now some people are this scared, but it's a minority, you wouldn't be going out. We wouldn't see you at Axelrad.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yep.
We wouldn't see you at the gig. You wouldn't be playing.
Well, that's called selfishness.
We wouldn't see you at the grocery store if you were that scared and it was that bad. And I promise you, if it were that bad, I would also be very nervous.
Mm-hmm.
Because early on, I was like, shit, I'm putting on gloves.
Yeah.
I'm wearing. I was like, oh, I'm on the inside info, N95, mask early.
Yep.
Hey, just real quick, let's lay out the blaming the unexperimented. You get ill.
Yeah.
You go to the guy, you say, hey, are you experimented on? They say no. They're like, well, you have to do it. I'm like, hey, they're like, why? Does it help actually stop the disease from happening? They're like, no, but you should still do it. And you're like, well, so it doesn't stop it. So why should I take it?
It might make my hospitalization less.
It might make my hospital. So if it doesn't protect you and it doesn't protect me, how will me getting it protect you? He's like, well, it won't, but you should still do it because, you know, you should still do it's the right thing to do. And then you say, well, who says it's the right thing to do? Oh, well, the people making the experiment say it's the right thing to do. So it doesn't protect you. It doesn't protect you from me. I could still get it. You can still get it. And if we both have it, we might, like, it doesn't make sense because it's not supposed to make sense. Mm-hmm. It's just supposed to make people scared.
Well, and if you look in the media, they're really pushing the experiment. And it's like,
so much.
Why? You know, like,
for free.
Yeah, it's like, why? yeah, for free, you know? And it's like, okay,
And a donut, and a cheeseburger, and a joint, and a beer.
that's some of
Meanwhile,
the most disgusting shit I've ever
$1
seen in my
trillion
life.
contract was just signed with the pharmaceutical who's administering these things to the governments. And you think, well, they're not making any money of it. They're making more money than they could ever make off of you, boy.
Yeah.
They're making that government money.
That guy that was eating the cheeseburger,
Yeah,
I mean,
I
that was
posted that the other
that was
day.
offensive, you know?
That's fucking terrible.
It's like, I don't say that word very often because it takes a lot to offend me, but I'm like, okay, this guy is sitting here like, like literally,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Look at that.
It
Think
was de
about this.
Blasio
Think
in New
about
York.
getting one of these for free, you
That's
know?
the next
And
level.
it's like, you think people, and I mean, maybe they are, I don't know, but it's like, you think people are that fucking stupid, dude? Like,
He does. He does.
Yeah, I mean, I think he really does, but it's just like, that just shows you the disconnect with a lot of these people too. You know, it's like, okay, dude, you don't know your fellow man.
no.
Like, you don't. You're disconnected from reality. You're disconnected with the average Joe. You have, and you know, I hate to say it, but that's the majority of the people that are in power are just completely disconnected from the average man. You know, and it's sad because it's like, it shouldn't be like that. Like, there should be no, we're ruling these peons,
Right.
you know,
Right.
and they're gonna do what we say. It's like, no, like, that has never worked in any point of history.
Yeah.
Why do you think it's gonna work now?
Another
you know?
thing is, unfortunately, they're completely disconnected, but then we also have our average Joes that are totally disconnected on a different level in the sense that they know nothing about nothing and they're just going along to get along. For example, in the video that we just published the other day with all of our interviews, we published it yesterday, we said, hey, which one did you get? Which shot? And he was like, oh, the Miranda. I said, the what? He said, the Miranda. Doesn't even know what he got.
Yeah, a lot of people, that's the sad thing, is a lot of people are just floating through life. But like I say, you know, everybody's at different levels, and that's okay. I think what's happening personally, it's just hard to kind of witness, but I think in the end it's going to be a good thing, is I think that this is forcing humanity to evolve.
Yeah.
From the lowest level to the highest level. And like I say, everybody's at different levels, but I think it's forcing all levels to evolve.
Yeah.
And I think in the end, that's probably going to be a good thing, but I do think that we're going to have to see, going back to the tower card, tons of destruction before it actually takes place.
Yeah.
It's just wild to witness in real time, you know what I mean? Because there are a lot of people out there just like, you know, and it's
And
like...
Another thing that we noticed with that through these interviews is that 99% of people in their heart kind of have this intrinsic truth.
Yeah.
And they're like,
well, they're good. They're good people. A lot of these virtue
Yeah.
signaling people are good people. They just don't.
Yeah.
They can't see through the clouds.
No.
You know.
but they're worried about what they're about to do. They're worried about getting it. And then they're like, but honestly, man, just being totally honest with you, I just wanted to get back to normal.
Oh man, Ryan, you won't believe how many times we got that response. Once we actually dug deep, it turned out they just were scared. They don't have rationale. They don't have science.
Mm-hmm.
They say these words in passing, but once it comes down to the debate, there's nothing.
Yeah.
And I thought, because I've been trying to see how I can reach people online, but that's the hardest place to do it. And so I keep it, I use sarcasm, I use their own psychology against them. I try so many different things. I even try to pretend like I'm actually very for everything. But then I'm like, but we need to like learn how to fight their arguments. Like these arguments are really bad. Can we fight them? Like trying to bait them to debate me.
Yeah.
And usually 9 times out of 10, that comment is deleted or I'm ignored.
Yeah.
Because there is no rationale. And I thought that would work, but see, there's always the option of simply ignoring it.
Yeah.
But the devastating part, Ryan, is people have side effects from this experiment, and there are deaths, and even the deaths don't compute with the families. They're like, well, we tried.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get mine next week. Hopefully it works out.
Tell them about the
Oh man, when they do that, I'm like, wow. Oh, maybe you should die. I don't
Well, and
know.
that's what I mean. It's going to take,
Maybe
in my opinion, it's going to take a lot more of that for it to set in. Unfortunately, I think it's going to take a whole lot more of that for it to set in. And then when it does happen more and more, the news has to spread. You know, the news is suppressing a lot of the stuff, you know? And like I say, the only way to battle that is through networking and, you know, talking to everybody and trying to
Doing
spread
this.
it. And, you know, the censorship levels are going up because they don't want, I don't know what you want to call it, anything other than what they're saying
Right.
being out there, I guess you could say. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's
Like,
pretty much it.
so it's wild, you know. It's going to be wild to see how all this stuff unfolds.
We got to keep these communications up with people like Ryan. We got to
Yeah.
keep talking to people. In person is really most effective.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love the fact that you guys are hitting the streets and interviewing
Yeah.
people. I think that's awesome.
I think that's what it's calling for now.
It's good to do because you're educating people, but you're also getting some laughs out of it. You know, so
Exactly.
it's a balancing thing, and I
Yeah.
think it's awesome that y'all are doing that, especially in
It's hot.
our hometown.
And it's effective, honestly, way more than internet stuff.
Yeah.
It's too hot.
It's too hot. Okay.
Yeah. But, you know, honestly, if you guys want to say something, give us a positive, wholesome
Yeah.
end to the conversation, because
Well-
I think this is probably a great point for now.
A lot of positive, wholesome things were said. Number one,
Actually, yeah, that's totally true.
even the people that are quote unquote blinded are actually good people. They say heinous things on paper. It looks heinous, kind of like ignorant, but they're doing it because they genuinely care about others. And so they're projecting a little bit. That's good. So the good news is most human beings are good.
Yeah, they're just confused.
They're confused.
Well, and they're confused on purpose. There's a blanket of confusion being spread across every media platform, everywhere. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And they don't know how to cut through that confusion and cut through that fear.
Yeah, and I want to say before you jump the gun of virtue signal and saying it's the unexperimented fault, just try this. Go see a senior. This is hard to even recommend, but go see a senior virologist with decades of experience and try to get him to explain to you the logic of immunology. I am willing to bet even the vaccinologist who is super pro experiment, even the guy administering a bunch of experiments will tell you that your argument is nonsensical. Try to speak to people more before you jump the gun on a conclusion. Just talk to people. Please just talk to people. Don't sit there creating diversion or creating segregation with your words. Just have conversations. Please.
Yeah, my advice would be, you know, remember, it sounds harsh, but fear is failure. We are all one. That's totally true. Don't be afraid to go connect with your fellow brothers and sisters.
Yes.
Anybody that's gonna not be down with that, just leave them alone. They
Yeah.
don't deserve it. You know what I mean? They'll learn their lessons on their own. But I think now is the time for people to really come together and drop all the bullshit and realize, like, we are one and we are empowered. We can empower ourselves. We don't need these other people to do it. We have the power inside of us.
Yeah.
And I think if people know that and truly know it, there's nothing that can beat humanity, in my opinion. Nothing.
No. Yeah, we're like infinite.
But you know, there are a lot of bad guys out there, and we're just going to have to overcome that. And I think as a united human race, that won't be a difficult thing to do at all. But we have to make that the goal, you know, oneness.
Yeah, this is an opportunity to really do that. I think this is karmically what this entire world has been waiting for, at least in this eon.
Well, there's we can go two paths.
Yeah.
We can go the self-serving path or service to others.
Mm-hmm.
And service to others is going to be the way that humanity comes together, not the self-serving path.
Nikola Tesla said the point in which we start to observe supernatural phenomena and scientifically measure supernatural phenomena, we may have more growth in a decade than we've ever have as a species.
Yep.
And that's profound to think about. I really think that the spiritual sciences of the other worlds and other dimensions are going to really explode our consciousness in a big way. We just need to be receptive of it and open.
I think the baby steps of that are happening right now, and I
Yeah.
agree with you. You have to be open to it. And, you know, like I say, we have the power inside of us to to grow and evolve. That's why we're here on this planet.
Yeah.
So I think if people focus on that, they'll start to see a lot more positivity in their life.
Yeah.
You're here on this planet to work on and improve yourself, not to gain material things, not to be cool. Like, just be a good person. Be yourself. Help your brothers and sisters. That's what it's all about.
Amen.
That was a fantastic episode, everybody. Ryan Scroggins. And we're going to link to his tattoo work. We're going to link to his practices.
His music work.
And his music work. So be sure to check that out in the link in the description links. We're also going to ask that you please share, leave a comment, because like I said, I mean, it's really time to have these conversations more than ever, and to pour our hearts out there, ignore everything that's been distracting us. And this has been Houston Ensemble. Subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time.